Now, building a hot rod or a muscle car or a truck or, basically anything you want isn't a lot of fun if it doesn't drive well. And one of the things that makes these things drive better, and when I say better, they're more livable, they get better economy, they're not so annoying at cruise speed, is an overdrive. And a lot of times, a standard factory overdrive transmission just won't cut it. And that's where Gear Vendors comes in. We hooked up with Rick Johnson here, who we've worked with before. V8TV viewers are familiar with the Splitter project Trans Am, which has a Gear Vendor in it, and that's behind a 1,000 horsepower Pontiac. So, Rick, why don't you give me the quick story about how Gear Vendors came to be? I mean, the concept of an add-on overdrive. Where did it start?
Well, our roots go back to the Lenco days, when Lenco was popular. In fact, the first president of Gear Vendors was president of both Lenco and Gear Vendors at the same time.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, we got the idea, my dad did when we started the company 29 years ago, that, gas prices were $1.70 a gallon.
God forbid.
My dad had a 76 Chevy half-ton, with a small block 400. He takes the output shaft and cuts it off and takes it to Normanville overdrive that came in Volvos and stuff like that.
Okay.
They had and mounts it up and goes, hey, this works. Put a switch on the dash and we got 28% better fuel economy out of a small block 400. So we need a company to do this. So we hooked up with GCAN, who is a supplier to Volvo and Triumph and Ferrari and a number of people. We said, okay, we want some more of this planetary set that you're doing for Ford, and we're going to make some cases, and we're going to do a Raybestos clutch on here. We're going to raise some pressures and change some bearing sizes and shaft size. We're going to use 300M on the input shaft. And we're going to make adapters, and because people don't want to cut their output shaft.
No.
They want to have something bolts on, and so we displayed in 1981 here at SEMA and won our first Best Engineered Award back then. So I mean, we're like the original green company.
Right.
We've been making. I mean, today all of a sudden everybody's talking about fuel economy and the benefits to the environment and so forth. We've been doing this since here at SEMA since 1981. And now that takes us, to performance vehicles and everything, where we started just in the heavy trucks, the 1-ton Chevy crew cab dually that was towing race cars.
Right.
That's where we started, and now we're into the race cars and the truck towing the race car.
Yeah, you're in everything. Yeah. So Gear Vendors now is kind of, in a lot of ways, known for the high horsepower applications.
Well, yeah. One, we can handle a lot of horsepower, Kevin. So, with the quality of the materials we use inside, and it's not because we're smarter than GM, Ford, or Dodge. It's actually just because we put a lot of care into making only 3,000 overdrives a year. So these things are hand-built, And so the benefit also to the high horsepower guys, a lot of those guys are supercharged. So where a normally aspirated customer is getting 25% better fuel economy, if you've got an 871 blower on the top, you're looking at turning down the blower speed when you go into overdrive. You're getting 150% better fuel economy.
Sure.
And, more importantly, even than the fuel economy, is the fact that when we go and press on the throttle, we've had a long run, we just cruised 60 miles with all our buddies, that the supercharger's hot. The internals are hot. The whole air intake charge is hot, and now we got detonation that would happen. So we need to run race gas all the time to try to keep this thing healthy and not hurt.
$7 a gallon, $10
Yeah, now we're really talking serious gas prices.
Right.
So Gear Vendors just changes that whole scenario. You got overdrive, now the blower is running nice and cool. Now when we do show up somewhere and we want to show off a little, hey, it actually accelerates.
Yeah, right. And you don't need to have
got a cold air
fuel in the
charge.
tank.
Yeah.
Very cool. And that's something that you don't think about because, you tend to, when you put a car together, you think, well, I want this engine combination, and I want this trans and this rear end, and blah, blah, blah. And it kind of ends up being a static thing in your mind. And you don't think about, well, if we make a change here, our drivability will increase down here. And that's what you're telling me.
Yes. In fact, that's the message. That's why we have this little logo with the guy sitting on the motor and the tranny.
Sure.
Because to us, that's the important thinking in the car. Because this is the stuff you only want to do once.
Right.
We change wheels and tires. We change stance. We may even change some of the stuff on top of the motor, but we like to get the basics of the car, you want to do your tranny one time.
Right.
They're just not fun, and when you're done, you can't even show it off to anybody. It's hidden under the car.
Right.
So the idea is, get the best possible overdrive behind the best possible tranny. So that applies to both automatics and manuals. What's the best possible horsepower handling combination for you on a tranny? What's the best overdrive, whether it's manual or automatic, in the transmission? And let's put a planetary high-quality overdrive behind that and never touch that drivetrain under that part of the car again.
Right.
We work on more fun stuff.
Well, now let's talk about day-to-day life, okay?
Uh-huh.
And using an automatic trans as the example. Once it's bolted in, done, car's ready, you're driving on the road.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, as a person, interact with the gear vendor unit?
Well, you have a number of ways. Can we walk over here? I'll show you some shifters.
Yeah.
So, depending on the car you have, Hurst and B&M, which are the same company now, they worked with us for years, and they provide all their switch gear incorporated with our switch gear. So if you do an aftermarket shifter, like this Magnum grip here is real popular by both B&M and TCI as a Mopar part, because it has a lot of Mopar flavor to it with the pistol grip. And this is a gear vendor's button, so I can pull down into low gear here. Okay, I can hit the button and go to low overdrive, full throttle, and I can move up to second gear. And if I want half shifts where I keep the motor and the power, turn off the overdrive. At the same time I move this up. The gear vendor shifts out instantly. As fast as I can hit that button, it shifts out. Okay,
so we have no latency like an automatic trans.
No.
And let me get this straight. You can keep your foot to the floor,
right,
and engage and disengage.
Of course.
See, and
wouldn't be no good without the foot to the floor.
Well, but a lot of people, myself included, sometimes think, I don't want to hurt that thing, so I'm going to ease off, like it's a clutch type thing.
Well, even in our manual transmission. So there's a lot of different ways to control automatics, from hidden switches on dimmer switches we do in street rods, to flashy ways to do it like this, where we got stuff we can interact with, to paddle shifters
which is cool too.
Yep, paddle shifters. There's companies like Master Shift and Bowler and Retrotech and TCI is coming out with a new, and they all have been working with us because it's more fun to have more gears. Sure. You got to paddle. And then there's a whole manual side. If we go to a manual transmission, we can have, let's pretend now this is an automatic, but let's pretend we have a manual transmission and we're taking off in first gear. We can hit this button clutchless and go to first overdrive, just like having a Lenco for that first shift.
Sure, cool.
Okay?
Yeah.
100% full throttle. And that's the tough thing to do with a manual. The tough thing to do with a manual is that 1-2 shift. That's where all automatics just blow right by you, because you dropped the clutch, you got the car a little out of shape, now it hooked up, started driving, and you got a shift.
Right.
And there's some guys, Ronnie Socks or whatever.
Yeah, right. Guys that can do it.
There's some guys that can do it, but for you and I and the average guy out there, we can handle a nice shift on the 3-4, maybe the 2-3, but not the 1-2. The 1-2, that every automatic just flies by us.
It's a crapshoot,
yeah. So the gear vendors eliminates that for us. We take off. We actually have an auto launch circuit, so you can push that button before you leave. It'll turn a red light on the dash, mash the throttle, it'll go first overdrive.
Really?
Which is just like you shifted to second, Kevin. It's 28.6. It's the same ratio spread a Muncie is from first to second, and no letting off.
And then pull.
Second gear, which will now be like third.
Yes.
Third gear, which will now be like fourth. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah, so you just got that one shift you get. You can't split those ratios in a manual like you can the automatics, because it's already a close ratio tranny.
Right.
So you went through 8 gears, but they were too close together. It didn't do you any good.
Sure.
It wasn't faster.
Now, is there a way to run this like in a full automatic mode?
Well, the paddle shifters and our auto shift sequence, our auto shift sequencer are boxes, out there that'll let you, with an automatic, run first overdrive. When you move the shifter, our auto shift sequencer will take it out of overdrive as you move it up to the next full gear.
Okay, so you just engage and then bump.
Right. When you bump it this way, then it knows, okay, it's digitally watching that you move the shifter.
Oh, okay.
And watching the tach speed and pulling it out at the appropriate moment. And it's real cool and fun to drive, and it's a great way to gear split while talking to the girls and blasting the stereo and all that. But gear splitting for our normal customer is with our normal electronics that have the auto launch and the auto drive circuit in them. Do a great job for those, and they come as part of the kit with no cost option.